Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thanks for staying with us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. Included in the UN's Sustainable Development Goals is the plan to reduce suicide rates by 1/3 by 2030. With suicide claiming about 700,000 lives every year all over the world, it is the fourth greatest cause of death amongst 15 to 29-year-olds. Many others attempt suicide but are not successful. We are happy they don't succeed. But the reasons for attempting remain formidable without help. Unfortunately, in the places where most suicides are committed, resources are wanting and discrimination is high. There's a consultant psychiatrist in the house with me. Dr. Temilade Adegbite is here to help us understand how to prevent suicide. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone.
So let's talk about, how to first of all recognize that someone is suicidal. What should we be looking out for?
So when we're talking about suicide, I would say that by definition, suicide is an act of killing oneself. And when we're looking at the factors or what are the warning signs commonly in people who want to commit suicide, we'll see that many of the times, more than 85% of the times, they have underlying psychological condition, depression as one. So they are socially withdrawn.
Most of the time, it's a mental health disorder.
It's a mental health problem, yes. So they are socially withdrawn. They may also want to settle bills or settle quarrels with people around them. They may also, go hiding, and they may leave suicide notes in some cases.
You said settle quarrels among people. So they suddenly become peacemakers.
Yeah, not really that they are peacemakers. They're just trying to settle with whosoever they have offended or who has offended them, probably to make heaven or something. But most religious faiths believe that those who died by suicide may not make heaven.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of someone coming up to me and saying, I'm really sorry for the quarrel we had last week. That has happened a lot, but the person wasn't suicidal. Are there more concrete things we can be looking out for?
So not necessarily setting quarrels, but sometimes they may want to settle their debt.
We're getting
bills.
somewhere.
Yes, they may want to settle their bills. They may want to, settle issues around them before they finally leave. And some will actually leave suicide note.
Yes. But that might be, you might get it too late.
Most times.
And now we are talking about prevention. Do you have any idea of the statistics of suicide in Nigeria?
In Nigeria, I may not be able to say exactly, but I would say that all over the world, every 40 seconds, there is someone committing suicide somewhere. And it has been documented that close to 1 million people die by suicide each year. But in Nigeria, I may not be able to say exactly, but I would say that suicide rate is on the increase in most middle and low developing countries, including Nigeria. Thank you.
Meanwhile, in Nigeria, some are still, quite cavalier about it and, dismissive and think that those who attempt to commit suicide are weak-minded.
Well, I would say that in Nigeria, a lot of people still don't know about the signs and symptoms of mental illness. You can imagine someone writing something like, today is the last day on social media, and people are clapping and saying all sorts of things. Rather than rallying around such an individual to offer help, probably take to the hospital, give as much support as possible. Many of the times we don't do that. In fact, if you read social media, you may see something like safe trip, safe journey, say me well too, and all sorts of things. So I would say that, we still need to do more in terms of educating people on signs and symptoms of mental health conditions.
When you said today is the last day, that some people actually post that on social media, that gives me a bit more insight into some of the signs that people show. And when they say such things, do their friends know what they're talking about?
Well, sometimes they may know, at other times they may not know, but even when they know, do they do what they are supposed to do? Seeking help and ensuring that such individual gets help from a medical personnel, a psychiatrist in particular.
Okay, so a previous suicide attempt is high risk for another attempt or for the suicide to be successful itself. So after counseling, it's not as if the problem goes away. You are just equipping the person to better handle the problem. Am I correct?
Yes.
So how do you ensure that this person doesn't go ahead and then try again?
Of course, suicide attempt is an emergency in the hospital. So when they present, the first thing is we want to admit them. So such an individual is going to be under close watch of medical people, and we want to put on suicide caution. We also want to assess what are the underlying problems. Is it depression? Is it substance use? What personality disorder and many others, and we treat accordingly. But the first thing is we want to keep under watch, and we want to apply what we call suicide caution.
You made it clear that mental health illnesses are the major cause or major driver for suicides. But are there not other reasons why people commit suicide?
I would say that, having said that, many of the times, depression is a major cause. There are many other causes of course, socioeconomic status, issues of divorce, separation, relationship problems, substance abuse, loss are other common causes of suicide, not just mental health conditions.
Talking about how we treat suicidal individuals in this country, do you think some of this discrimination is just fear masked as disdain? Like someone tried to commit suicide and you get to know. I see parents shooing their children away from such people. Please don't go near so and so. I don't want my child to go and commit suicide. Perhaps it's fear. What do you think?
I would say that the issue of stigmatization is a major challenge when we are talking about suicide, and it's not a good way to go. We need to understand suicide not from the social angle, but from the medical angle, and we would say that this is a psychological condition.
Okay, you are a member of SERPIN, that's a Suicide Research and Prevention Initiative, and I know that you have presence in the Lagos State University Hospital, teaching hospital. Have you been able to spread your influence, your tentacles to other hospitals in Lagos or maybe anywhere else in the country?
So I would say that we are Suicide Research and Prevention Initiative. We are dominant at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Idiaraba. But we have our stakeholders all over the country across the 6 geopolitical zones, such that when there's an issue in one part of the country, we have a stakeholder there, we have another consultant psychiatrist at Maiduguri, and we can quickly put a phone call through to take up whatever case and whatever is happening around there. So we are cut across all parts of the country, and I can say that even sometimes we get phone calls from outside Nigeria.
700,000 is a lot. That's many people to die by self-harm in 1 year. How much impact do you think SERPIN has had on suicide prevention in Nigeria?
We are trying our best, and we will continue to try more. Yeah, we are psychoeducating people. Prevention is
success stories, people who would have committed suicide, but they later changed their minds. They're doing well today.
So we have quite a number of clients who have called SERPIN, and we were able to, attend to them on time, and currently they are receiving care at our various centers. Yes.
So how does this work? Somebody puts a call through to you and says, I suspect my friend is suicidal. This is what he is saying, this is what she is saying. Do you send somebody to get the person? Because The person's will is involved. What if the person says, I don't want to go? How do you handle this?
So most cases, they put a phone call through. We get the number of the individual, the person that is involved directly, and then we have about 5, 6 of us calling a particular number at a time. And if the individual is not picking his or her calls, we try to send text messages. We are sending encouraging messages to them. And we are trying to tell them, the first thing we want to do is, one more day. Can you just hold on for one more day, and then the other day, one more day, until we are able to have access to the individual, and then they can come to the hospital for care.
But isn't it true that sometimes you have to have presence on ground, like a negotiator in a crisis situation, talking to such a person because the situation is really dire?
So in incidences where we're able to get a phone number of probably a mother or the father of the individual, we also make use of that. But in cases where we cannot get that, maybe the friends, maybe whosoever is calling us, we try to trace the number, and if we can get people around there close to the individual, wherever they may be, maybe somewhere in Ifako or somewhere around Ijayo, Jokoro, we encourage them to at least come to the hospital, and it has worked in the past.
Okay. What if somebody's sibling comes and tells his brother, sister, mother, I'm suicidal? And that person gets on the phone. We have the numbers, by the way, some numbers which you'll be scrolling now or showing on the screen. And that person gets on the phone and is calling Serping, and maybe not getting Serping in time, maybe due to the internet connection or whatever, but the phone call is not going through in time. What do you suggest such a person does in the meantime?
So as much as possible, we don't want to leave a suicidal patient alone. It's good at least someone is with them while we are trying to also keep away all sharps, ropes, jig, whatever, knives, sharp objects that they can use to commit suicide. We ensure at that time someone is at least there to stop whatever that they want to do at that point in time while we're making efforts to get the individual to the hospital to access treatment.
Okay, you say while we are trying, but I also hear that we should do the same thing. When you see somebody who seems to be suicidal, lock up your jig, lock up anything that is poisonous or sharp, or that the person can use to cause self-harm, knives and all that stuff. It's really something. So another problem with suicide is the criminalization of it. How are we doing with decriminalization laws in Nigeria, so that if somebody doesn't succeed in an attempt, the person is not punished?
So I would say that we're trying our best, and even the World Health Organization is pushing for decriminalization of suicide in all countries. And
but we don't have it yet in Nigeria.
We don't have that currently in Nigeria, but I'm aware about 23 countries have been able to succeed. But we're also pushing, and we're hoping to get some good results from that. We're encouraging the government to also look at it from psychological view and not just social view. So decriminalizing suicide is not the best, and is one of the challenges that is being faced by people who are trying to commit suicide.
We'll have to talk more on that when we come back. But for now, we're going on a short break. Please stay with us and see us on the other side. Welcome back. It's Health Matters on Channels Television, and I am Mary Alale Yusuf. We are talking about suicide prevention, a very big global health problem, actually, that we're discussing today. You can call if you have questions. You call 0808-054-2233, or get me on X at CTV_Mary A, or email mo.alale@channelstv.com. If suicide and suicide attempts are not decriminalized. What I see happening is people who want to commit suicide going in there to make sure it works. Because if it doesn't work, you'll be in prison. For how long?
Is the 1 year imprisonment?
1 year.
In Nigeria.
And prison is no joke.
No.
No joke.
Not at all.
So, we understand that Lagos State, at least, I don't know about other states, is bringing mental health care to the primary care, healthcare level. Does this include suicide prevention?
Well, it should be part of it, but we're being faced with a lot of challenges. So the issue is not just bringing mental health to primary health care. Yes, we are saying that, but the concern is we don't even have personnel on ground again.
But that's the whole point, that when you bring it down to the primary healthcare level, you have a broader base of people to handle the problems.
Oh, well, for suicide, I wouldn't say that suicide can be managed at the primary healthcare level. Many of the times we need secondary level of care or the tertiary level of care. And unfortunately, many doctors are out of the country and we have fewer psychiatrists left in the country. Currently, that's not the issue. That's not the only problem that we have. Of course, many of the times they want to access care, but again, issue of funding, that's another problem. Currently in Nigeria, you have to pay out of pocket. Sometimes NHIS, mental health is not fully covered under the National Health Insurance Scheme, and many of the HMOs present in Nigeria would say that they don't cover one aspect of mental health or the other, especially when it has to do with substance use. So those are some of the challenges that
But at the
faced.
new psychiatric hospital and maybe at Arrow in Abeokuta, are those ones not, reachable funds-wise? Are they not cheaper and more accessible?
Well, they may be cheaper than some other hospitals. However, clients will still have to pay out of pocket.
Still pay out of pocket.
And when they don't have money, there's little or nothing that they can do. So sometimes access to health care is a big challenge when it comes to funding.
So we can say that there's no one at the primary healthcare center who is equipped to manage mental
We are trying to psychoeducate and also train our primary healthcare workers. But when it comes to suicide, we have to refer to either a secondary level of care or a tertiary level of care. It's not a disorder or an illness that can be managed at the primary healthcare level.
Okay, following through from that, let's say you've discharged the patient. You've treated, you've spoken to the person, and you feel the person is ready to go home. Isn't he on a suicide watch of sorts in his family? Can't he try something again? And how should they react?
So what we tell relatives, and including the patients when they come to the hospital, is that sometimes, even at that point in time when they are depressed, they may not have enough energy to carry on whatever suicide method they want to do. But when they have received care, that is the most important time to us. So they may now have enough energy to carry on whatever they want to do. And we psychoeducate the patients and the relatives. For the initial discharge from the hospital, we want to see them more frequently, and we also psychoeducate suicide caution at home, and that they should ensure taking their medications, while we're also equipping them with coping skills.
Okay, how do you classify this kind of case? I know that there are some people who use suicide or the threat of it as a manipulative tool. They say, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself, that kind of thing. Does that fall under a suicidal person? Is there a method of prevention? But before we go there, we have someone on the line. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your question?
My question is this. When somebody commits a I mean, before somebody commit, there are a lot of problems around
You need to put your TV off. It's howling back at us. You need to put your television set off so that we can hear you here.
The volume is off. It's totally off.
Okay, this is better.
Are you hearing me now clearly?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is this. The economic situation in this country has, compounded the whole economic situation. Is it not okay for the federal government to look for solution, a kind of panacea?
Okay, you're going in and out, but I get the gist of your question. It's talking about, the federal government sort of taking some of the burden because of the economic situation, the burden of handling suicide.
Yes, we appreciate that. Of course, that's fine. It's just that currently, as of today, what do we have on ground? Yes, if the government is willing to take that up, we're happy about it, and that's a welcome idea.
But are you pushing for it?
We're trying our best. We're trying our best, yes. Even the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria, we're also trying other methods apart from that to also make sure that, the Mental Health Act comes into play. And I would say that recently, this year, January, President Muhammad Buhari has signed into law a new mental health bill, although that is yet to be implemented.
Yes, I
so
remember
we're trying our
when
best
that
on
happened.
that. Yes.
Okay, back to the case I was talking about. Somebody using it as a manipulative tool. And then who handles such a case? Is it the psychiatrist, the social worker, the doctor, or do you take it to the police?
So we work as a team. And we have the psychiatrist, we have the psychiatric nurses, we have the social worker, occupational therapist, and so on. Many of the times, people who eventually commit suicide may want to use that to seek attention, but they mistakenly sometimes just end up killing themselves. So because of that, we don't, even though we have our questionnaires, or we have our instruments that we use in monitoring and checking the severity of whatever, we don't say that, no, this is not important. Any suicide
indication should be
acted upon with immediate
Let's quickly
effect.
take this call from a caller in Nasarawa. Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Go ahead with your question.
Hello?
Go ahead with your question. We can hear you.
Yes. We should focus on the community health practice in regard to mental disorder.
Okay.
Most of these problems occur in the village. So
that's a very spotty call too.
To be helpful, not even in Lagos State, within the Nigeria across, they have to focus on in the village.
Okay, I hear you saying that we should have a community effort to handle this problem, a community effort for suicide prevention. What do you think? Is it possible? Can we do it?
Well, I would say that we all have one role or the other to play, and it's not limited to the community alone. One-on-one, the parents have a lot to do. The community, the religious organizations, the mosque and the churches, the government, everybody will have a role to play in prevention of suicide, not just the community alone.
I'm really looking forward to when we won't have all those numbers to call and we will have a short code. I think the medical profession, the doctors, everybody in the healthcare sector should look into a short code because it's so much easier to remember.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Dr. Adigbite, it's been a pleasure.
It's a
and
pleasure
thank
being
you
here.
for being on the
Thank you.
show with us from your homes. Have a lovely day. I'm Mary Alale Yusuf.